everybody, welcome to Love and Relo, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I'm so blessed and honored to be here with my friend Anindita Chowdhury, managing attorney, USILAW, here in the DC area on this beautiful summer day. How's it going, Anindita?
Fabulous. Thank you so much, and I'm so happy and grateful that we are able to host you at USILAW.
Yeah, it's great, and you've got a lovely office here too. It's
Thank you.
brand new space you have here.
We just moved last week.
Oh
so
my gosh!
I'm really excited that
I hear moving can be stressful. What's it been like to move your office?
We had a couple of stressful days, but then we've moved in and settled in kind of comfortably now.
Yes. They call it a storming, norming, and performing the phases of change, right? So,
Seriously.
Well, it's great. I'm so happy to be here. I've got my coffee going here, so thank you so much for that. Hey, get in the comments here. I want to know who you are, where you are. If you're out there, we are taking questions and comments. We're going to be talking about, business immigration. We're going to be talking about Anindita's story. It's pretty fascinating, talking about the ups and downs of business immigration, the highs and lows, the happies and sads sometimes, and the stories that come out of this business are so heartwarming and sometimes heart-wrenching. And I want to hear about that. And Anindita, real quick, just to kind of get us started here, tell us, how did you get into business immigration? What was that journey like for you?
Absolutely. I am proud to call myself first an immigrant. And I came here in August of 1990. And as a student. So I've been through all the alphabet soup of the visas. I came here as an F1 myself, and then pretty much went through the H1 process, then the green card, then the naturalization. But essentially started in Pennsylvania and started in the immigration trade in 1993.
So when you came here in 1990, what was your ambition coming here? Did you know you wanted to be a business immigration attorney and have your firm and everything? Or what was your...
Truth be told, I was always a business bent because I was a daughter of a businessman. My father had his own business back home in India, where I'm originally from. But originally, my goal was to be a diplomat.
Oh.
So my goal was to get my master's. I came here when I was 19. I was enrolled for a master's in government and to get my master's and then focus on my PhD. And then serve as a diplomat at that point for the Indian government. But as divine intervention or fate would have it, I finished my master's and didn't get a scholarship for a PhD program.
Oh.
So pretty much I was advised to take a couple of years off. Presumably that was the American way,
right,
to gain experience, because at that point I was 20 and a half. I wasn't even 21 when I graduated. Wow. And this kid who wanted to do a PhD. So
you had some time. I mean, you're 21 years old. Yeah, it takes a couple of years.
Seriously. So I was advised to gain some experience and then, save some money and then go back into the PhD field. And lo and behold, the first job I got was in the immigration field.
Okay. And all right. I want to hear about this here. We got some people checking in here. Get in the comments. I want to know what you're thinking out there, what questions you have for Anindita on her incredible global mobility and business immigration journey. We got people checking in. Hit that like button out there. Send some love out here to us here in Maryland here. What town are we in right now?
We're in Bethesda.
Bethesda. We are in Bethesda. Okay. We got Ritu checking in. Hello from the building next door in Bethesda. What's up, Ritu? How you doing? We've got Nina checking in from India. Not exactly next door. Thank you for being here, Nina. I don't even know what time it is over there.
It should be 2 a.m.
2 a.m. Nina, get some sleep. After the show. Hang in here for you. It's going to be fun. John Fernandez, hello from Arizona. What's up, John? It's good to see you, John. Good to hear from you as well. John, I'd like to actually ask you, if you're out there, throw some questions in here about business immigration. I'd love to see what you're seeing. John's the Executive Vice President of Global Mobility Solutions out there in Arizona. So I'd love to see what you're seeing, unless you're on the golf course right now, John, in which case, save your questions here. Jason Hall, thanks for joining. Love Jason. Met Jason, got to spend some quality time with Jason in Las Vegas at the
amazing team.
Worldwide ERC. You do have a phenomenal team here. Rachel Longo, I love hearing about people's journey here. Yeah, Rachel, we're going to get into it and how she got into the business immigration. But I want to ask you, and we're going to talk about your team too, because your team is
Absolutely.
unique.
Yes.
Jillian goes, hi from Connecticut, excited for this one.
Hi, Jillian. Missing you.
Yeah,
Should've been here.
Jill, we missed you at the Beyonce concert, Jill. Questions in the comments, throw them in there. So anyway, so tell us, all right, keep going with your story.
So then I started off being the assistant to the immigration coordinator. The International Students Office director really was very kind to me. So the first job I had was just the assistant immigration coordinator, because they had all the F1s and some of the Js at the university. And then when that job, I transitioned into a paralegal at a law firm in Philadelphia. And when I started with Emily, it was Emily Cohen's firm. We were just, I think, 7 or 8 of us. I got quickly promoted in, I would say, what would be a year as the assistant director. And then I left her for law school to come to DC. I went to school at night and worked full-time during the day for almost 7 years at one of the largest immigration law firm. And then I left there in 2003 to start USILAW.
So I'm sorry, you said you worked at night, or you said you worked during the day, at night?
Day. I worked at day.
And went to school at night.
Yeah.
You did that for 7 years?
No, I went to law school at night.
Okay.
That was for 3 years.
For 3 years, okay.
But I continued. And then I decided to walk, and I then felt the passion to start something on my own.
I want to hear about that, because I just did that, leap 3 years ago, and I have a soft spot in my heart for entrepreneurs. I love the stories. Let's see here. We got Madan Agrawal here. I am from Pennsylvania. What's up? We got another Pennsylvania person in the house here. Hit that like button. Put your comments in the comments. Comments in the comments? Yeah, I'm still new at this. Anyway, so what was that thing though that you said, hey, I want to start my own firm? You worked for a couple firms. What was that?
I think it was customer service, honestly. And that brings us full circle to what you and I had even started discussing.
Yeah.
And what brings us to what, we in the relocation space and global mobility, I don't see any difference between what the relocation space does, global mobility does, law firm does, because at the end of the day, I think we should not forget who our customers are, and that's the beneficiary, the foreign national.
Yeah.
Because, having gone through it myself, when you uproot a human being, a family, whoever the situation brings, the challenge is to make that human being, that effort, that process feel seamless for that person.
Right.
And that's a challenge each of us have, whether it's the relocation sector, whether it is the immigration law firm, whether it is the entire system of global mobility. How that is the challenge we all have on a daily basis with our responsibility. Because at the end of the day, it is not just a company, it's just not a money-making opportunity. It is the talent that everybody needs. I don't care whether it is America, whether it is sections of Europe, whether it is Latin America, whether it is Australia, whether it is APAC, whether it is the Middle East, and no matter which part of the world. And the responsibility, at least here at USILAW, the way we view it, and the way I am blessed with the team. I mean, I'm nobody. I'm a non-entity without the blessings of this amazing team that I'm blessed to have created on a daily basis, where we believe in servicing the client. The client is here, not the companies we represent, but the foreign nationals that they call employees. And I truly believe this. It's not a marketing ploy that I'm sharing with you, Ben. And you and I have talked offline about this, where when you are bringing, and in this case, it's not just the employee, there might be a spouse, there might be a child, and how do we help relocate? How do we help that human being feel comfortable?
Yeah.
Because the way we look at it at USILAW, it is, a type of treatment that we believe in, which is customer friendly, which is customer centric. And more so, I'll tell you, the way we handle business here, the math runs to maybe 50%, 60%. The team here are immigrants themselves. We are not first generation, the rest of them may be first generation, but we immigrants ourselves, so we know what it is to stand in line for a visa. We know what it is
Right.
to have the fear to be rejected, so we feel the pain.
You know what's riding on that too, right?
100%.
Yeah, so the empathy level must be incredible. And that's one thing I did notice, as I walk around, as I meet the team, incredibly diverse team from all over the world. Like you said, a lot of first, second generation immigrants. How does that influence kind of the purpose that you find in your work and the culture that you achieve?
It's organic. It's organic because for a good percentage, we don't have to train them to feel the pain. And the rest of those, like I always say, and I'm very serious when I say this, that you're blessed. For those of us who have had to stand in line, have to work through getting the blue passport, and for those of you who are blessed with being born with the blue passport, you should still feel motivated to cater to the clients in the same mentality, in the same
Sure.
nature. And you see that not just in the customer service, of course, we start with that, but also in our work product.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think, and you're right, it's something that we have to remember no matter what vertical of the mobility industry that we're in, right, is to keep a customer-focused approach. And I have to tell you, I've been guilty of losing sight of that myself, right? Because you handle so many files, and it's human nature to just to kind of treat them, to forget the uniqueness, to forget the importance of each individual file, right? I mean, gosh, if we were to become biographers of each file that we touch, how would we get anything done, And the thing that always reminded me is whenever I had to move or whenever I had to relocate, I've been moving people's stuff around for 15 years. And then when I move, that mattress or that dresser or that, family heirloom or whatever becomes of the absolute utmost importance. And I'm on the phone and I'm like, where's my stuff? And they're like, sir, we said we had until Tuesday to deliver. I said, that's not good. I need to know where my stuff is right now. And I can't imagine when you have the fate of someone's life. The trajectory of their life,
Absolutely.
Their life's journey is at a fork in the road. And you're kind of processing that with them. I mean, it's one thing for me to move from Florida to Texas to New York. It's another thing for someone to get that ticket to say, you get to now go to this country and pursue your dream. How do you keep each one individually important?
See, there's parallel relationships, right? There's a relationship because for the most part, and we don't process one application a week. We are fortunate enough to be entrusted with thousands of visas, on a yearly basis. We are fortunate enough to represent Fortune 100 companies, Fortune 500 companies,
Yeah.
So from that perspective,
large clients. And
Yeah.
I mean, I think I was talking to Nam Park on your team, top 10, visa processing firm, if I'm correct. I mean, I think I saw that statistic, right? I mean, it's really impressive the amount of work you do, and yet you still manage to keep that focus and that personal touch.
Yeah, we were the 7th largest, H-1B processors
Wow.
published by the DOL. We have the highest industry-leading percentage of success, 99% and above, humbly said, with all this craziness, even during the Trump era. But with that, I mean, if you look at it on paper, the clients are these companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have a bifurcated way of looking at our customer service approach. Yes, the HR managers, the HR personnel are some of the one part of the relationship. But then the beneficiaries or the foreign nationals are the other part of the relationship. Because there is a duty of care that we owe the HR professionals of the companies. And then there's a duty of care that we owe to these particular foreign nationals that you were saying,
Right.
that are moving, right? These human beings that are moving.
Right.
And I respectfully disagree with our competitors that are there, where the way we handle our work product, the way we handle our approach to the work, we do take the extra time to handhold, to go the extra mile, to maybe answer that extra email, to pick up the phone, to spend that extra time
Yeah.
to answer those extra questions, which will then help them regain their confidence, feel heard,
Yeah.
feel acknowledged, and then feel the confidence that, our company cares about us because our company has entrusted this law firm to help us in this
Yeah.
process.
And that's the number one complaint I hear from global mobility managers is they just have folks calling them like, I can't get an update. I don't know where it is. And then they get lost in these message boards online about what's happening and all this scuttlebutt around the water cooler around what's happening with visas and things like that. People get really freaked out. You mentioned the Trump administration and while that was challenging, there was a whole lot of bad news and rumors that was floating around that made it even worse. We've got some really good comments in here. Get your questions into the comments. We will answer your questions about entrepreneurship, about business immigration, about what we're seeing in the marketplace, about Anindita's, what she's found throughout her career and where she gets all her inspiration and from and running a large organization like this. Let's see here. We got Terrell Thomas. Great work. Howdy from Texas. Howdy. I love to get howdy. Look at this. Adam Sattel. Hey, back in Dallas. Excited for Love and Relo coming out of the 500th episode experience event. Yes, Adam, thank you so much. And shout out to the team who put that together last week in Texas. That was remarkable.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah, thank you. We have a question here from Rachel Longo. Rachel says, this is great. We have people who are waiting for me at a bar in the DC area right now from the GWERC event that was happening. Yes, we're waiting for you at
escaped here.
Lauren, I'm sorry. I'm kind of in the middle of something, Lauren, but I will call you later, okay? Thanks, Lauren. Lauren was on the show yesterday. Rachel has a question here. Back to business, back to work. Rachel says, I have always been hopeful that international students would be given a separate pathway. Do you think there's ever a chance that they will be exempt from the H-1B cap?
I honestly
first explain to our folks who don't know what the cap's about,
Sure.
and then let us know what your thoughts are on this.
Sure. The H-1B cap that Lauren is referring to is a quota system that the U.S. Congress had come out with. It's first a 65,000 number of visas that have set aside every year for any professional, skilled professional, which is any position that requires a minimum of a bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
And essentially anybody around the world can apply for it.
And that number's been relatively fixed from what I
Pretty
hear
much. For decades.
For
Yeah.
decades.
For decades.
Regardless of the fact our overall population's grown, regardless of how much immigration demand there
Absolutely.
is, and the fact that the tech sector has exploded, and we need talent, especially STEM talent. That was the thing we were
100%.
banging the table about for years, right? And that numbers remain widely unchanged, and yet the demand for these visas has, I don't know, I'm just gonna throw a number, triple, quadruple.
Absolutely.
I mean, the amount of people that apply, I think somebody said is 4 or 5 times more
Yes.
than is available this past year. So now these students have to go through this process. So what is Rachel saying here? Do you think there's ever a chance they will be exempt from H-1B cap?
I mean, they have an additional 20,000 that they set aside for students that have gotten their master's or higher, which is basically PhDs. But honestly speaking, considering they have done very little for increasing the 65 and they've done only adding 20, I honestly have minimal hope that they would do anything more. To be very blunt with you, Rachel, no. I'm a straight shooter. I really don't have any hope.
At least
that
not in
they
the
will.
near term, right?
In the near term, yeah.
Immigration is one of those, divisive political issues. I think that there's there's a lot of misinformation about immigration, right? And that it, lets people on, right, that it takes Americans jobs, right? And I think that myth has been widely dispelled in academic circles and through research, right? And then actually immigration produces jobs and actually produces gross domestic product, right? And we can just see it anecdotally when we look at the
Absolutely.
CEOs of the largest companies,
Absolutely.
you know, Google, you know, and Tesla, and I mean, these are immigrants, right?
Absolutely.
And we wouldn't have that without immigration, these pathways.
100%.
You know, so and frankly, we get them over here for school. We got to keep them.
Absolutely.
You know, they're already you know, indoctrinated in the American culture. Like, let's keep them here. You know, let's let them be successful. Let's not educate them and send them back somewhere else. You know, or lose them to Canada. We had Dr. Parag Khanna speaking last week at the LOVE+RELO 500, and he's written the book Move recently about where people are going to end up over the next 30 years. And one of the things he said was that was eye-opening for me was that the United States is no longer the number one destination that Canada is. Now, me and Nafis, got into it a little bit, the other night. And he's like, he makes a strong case for the U.S. still being number one from a desirability standpoint, but the pathways and the quotas just aren't there to receive the folks that want to be here.
Yeah,
I mean, you must face this all the time.
Yeah.
Super interesting. Let's see here. Yeah, Lauren, sorry. She says boo. Yeah, I know. Yeah, we gotta work, Lauren. Okay, this is work for me, all right? So we walk around this beautiful office you have with all these great faces in here. And I was talking to someone at your firm just earlier today, and they were saying how a client was visiting yesterday, and they remarked on the youth, they remarked on the diversity, and they made a jump there that said, that must be where the creativity comes from, and the success with all of the visa, applications that y'all process. Where do you think the success comes from, and that makes you different from the visa application approval rates that y'all see from what I've heard? And I don't know this to be true, but this is from what I hear is significantly higher than other firms. Where does that come from?
I mean, we believe that immigration is, and we have worked with, over the decades, worked with several companies of several sizes, several revenues, and have proven to them that immigration is and must be viewed as a strategic advantage, not a burden.
Right.
For those who have that, it is a strategic advantage, not a burden.
Right.
So from that perspective, what we bring to the table is customized work product. Yes, although we produce thousands and thousands of petitions.
Yeah, how do you balance the customization of the work product with the sheer volume that y'all process?
There is a way to do so. Believe me, Ben, there is a way to do so with even an H-1B. Mm-hmm. And that's what we bring to the table. And that's where, even in the Trump era, where everybody was screaming and shouting, oh, we're getting 90% RFEs and 60 or 40%.
Define RFEs for the lay people.
For those who don't know, it's request for additional evidence. Okay? And even there, the requirements for what makes an approvable, strong H-1 petition has not changed over the decades. The criteria of what is a specialty occupation petition has not changed. It has tweaked over the last, I would say, decade or decade and a half, when it has come to, an IT petition, where there is a right to control, an employee-employee relationship, stuff like that. What we do is we put everything in the strongest possible light at the get-go.
Yeah.
And that lends to a very strong petition, which then immigration picks up and says, you know what? This is an approvable petition. This is something that deserves a 3-year approval. No RFEs, no request for additional evidence. Let's just approve it.
So what I'm hearing you say is you do it right the first time.
Yeah. There's no excuse for not doing it right the first time.
Well, I mean, time. I got to imagine it takes more time to do it that way,
it's,
right?
In my humble opinion, unconscionable when you don't do it.
Yeah.
Your clients
people's lives
are depending on you.
Right.
Right? That's your ethical responsibility. That's at least what we believe. I'm not here to judge or comment on how other people do it, but that's the USILAW difference. And that is why we get clients. And that's why we have not lost a client in the last 2 decades. This is a partnership.
Yeah.
When we address a company, it's not a client. Mm-hmm. I hate the word client, honestly. Mm-hmm. It's a partnership. Mm-hmm. So when we look at the book of companies we work with, we look at, when you bring a case to me or a case to us, it's just not a case. It's like, with the pool of experienced professionals we have, I could tell you not just with this petition, but what would happen in the next 10 years. Let's get real. For, let's just say, an Indian national, right? He or she's not going to get his green card or the full status because of the backlogs for an Indian national, because the green card quotas are, really backlogged.
Yeah.
So for an Indian national to get a green card, it could take very well 10, 12 years. So it's called, I could look at this case and immediately tell you what's going to happen to this professional for the next 10 or 12 years. So it's future proofing.
Wow.
And that is what the HR professional needs.
It's so interesting you say that, because I was literally on the call with a global mobility leader earlier today, and we talk about a seat at the table, but this person was saying, if the CEO had you on their plane flying somewhere, and they said, hey, come on up to the front here, I want to talk to you, I hear you do global mobility. Tell me, are we going to be able, I hear there's a cap on H-1Bs, are we going to be able to have the people we need to have this year to execute our strategy? Point blank. And they're not asking you about the cost and how come you're 5% over budget on your fees or whatever like that. They're asking you, are we going to have the bodies, the talent, the right resources in the right place to do the right thing for our company? And that's the strategic importance and the possibility of where global mobility, global HR, immigration can sit in an organization. And I think that's the real opportunity. And sometimes I think we get mired in the transactional and the reactive nature of our jobs. Like, okay, here's somebody comes in, we're going to process it, we're going to do the best we can. But when you talk about future proofing and looking at the next 10, 12 years, I think that's really interesting. I got some other comments coming in. Get your questions into the comments. I want to hear what you're thinking about business immigration, about Anindita's story. I got some questions about culture and being an entrepreneur. I also want to hear some stories too. You want to share some stories with me? I feel like you probably have the best stories here. So let's see here. We got Richard checking in from London town. What's going on, Richard from London? Hey, Richard. We've got Asia represented. We've got Europe represented. Plenty of people here from the U.S. This is great. Oh, Jason Hall, always making trouble in the comments here, Jason. Let's see what Jason's up to. What is USILAW's most passionate? What is USILAW most passionate about?
I'd say duty of care.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. What does that mean to you in words that we use every day? Or tell me a story,
I will tell you a funny story.
Okay, love stories.
And then I'll tell you a very difficult one. A funny story was, this is almost 20 years ago, so, kind of bordering USILAW and pre-USILAW. So we had processed a L visa for a CFO that was being transferred from Australia to the US.
Yeah.
And when the gentleman arrived in the US at their headquarters, he starts, and this is a huge appliance manufacturer. He arrives at their plant and starts walking down the hallway into their legal branch, the division where legal office was located, and says, "Where's Anindita?" And they're like, Anindita doesn't have an office here.
Yeah.
Why are you looking for Anindita? He's like, well, this is the lady that helped me with my visa. She's like, yeah, we know, but she doesn't live here. I mean, she doesn't have an office here.
Right.
So he's like, what do you mean? She's like, oh, she's just an outside vendor. She's just an attorney who processes paperwork for us. And he's like, you mean to say I had an attorney talking to me at 2 a.m. US time?
Wow.
Because
so he thought you were an employee because of the commitment you had.
Yeah, and it's like, because.
And he probably thought you were on there because this new CFO. So you're like, oh, the big boss is coming, so I gotta bend over backwards.
This is like Australian time 2 p.m., which was our 2 a.m. at that point in time, whichever time zone I was. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And he's like, wow, I had somebody talking to me at US time 2 a.m. It's like, wow. What sort of a person is this? And it's not like we weren't in a position to even bill for this time. So then fast forward,
Wow.
as he had left that organization, he joined another organization where he is right now a senior partner. And coincidentally, a team member of his, it happens to be a very close friend of mine and my husband's. And my friend was vacationing, and our families are close. And they have another immigration firm that they work with. And they were very upset because some of their visas were getting denied, and their professionals, senior managers, were having to be sent back home. You know, typically the bad part of immigration being done wrong. And she was frustrated, and she's like, my colleague was complaining that some of his team members had to be sent back. And let me see, I was just talking to him, let me see if he has an immigration attorney to recommend.
Yeah.
So this was just as a joke. My husband and I were joking. He's like, this guy is never going to recommend you. I
Right.
said, I bet on
How
it.
How long had it been since you did his?
It was at probably 7 years.
7 years later, 8 years
Yeah.
later.
So
So
it's
Nafis
been a
is
while.
like, there's no way this guy
Yeah,
remembers
he
you
didn't
7
remember
years
you.
later.
So my friend picks up the phone and gets on the phone with him, and his first name is Robert, and he's like, Robert, we're having these problems. Do you know how should we solve this? I mean, should we look at another immigration law firm to recommend to our organization? He's like, wait, I have the most amazing lady. She has her own firm. She's like a pit bull. She'll be the best person. And it's funny because we use that phrase, and I'm very proud to be called the pit bull for my clients because to me it's a compliment.
Yeah,
And
sure.
then
Everybody wants a pit bull working for them. Nobody wants to be chased by one, but everybody wants one to defend their home. Like, that's the irony, right?
Seriously.
Yeah.
And then she very casually hands the phone over to Robert and then puts me on speakerphone. And she says, Robert, oh, by the way, somebody wants to say hello to you. And then I start speaking to him, and he's like, Anindita? And I was like, hi, how are you? And it was just I just laughed.
Wow.
And then I had to dig up my
So he
husband.
remembered you after 7 or 8 years. And then what happened? Did you end up getting the business?
Well, we pitched for it, and then they started in-housing their immigration, and they started their own immigration practice, unfortunately.
Yes,
so
yes.
They're one of the big five, so, in the consulting field, so they started their own immigration practice. So
well, that'll happen sometimes, I guess. Let's see here. We've got people tuned. That's a great question, Jason. We're going to keep story time going, but first we got some people tuning in here. Richard in London saying, I was cooking dinner and the show popped up on the phone. He says, I know these people from Jason. So that's why I'm tuning in. Thank you, Richard. Don't burn whatever you're cooking. What's for dinner, Richard? It's always Richard's dinner time, so I worry he doesn't eat when he's on Love and Reload watching. Let's see, Jason's, okay, here we go. Richard's got a question, and then Ritu, we got yours next. Richard says, thinking of London, do people still want to move here after Brexit, or have we alienated the world? Good question, Richard. People still want to go to Great Britain?
I mean, immigration to the U.S. is still very strong, so, no complaints there. I mean, there's definitely, this year, I'll tell you, talking about the age cap, we had close to 500 million applications. It was crazy. So, no. People definitely, I'll say something on a personal note. I've had the privilege of traveling to, I think, 64, 65 countries. And, when we travel, my husband has a habit of asking, the waiters and the maitre d's or anybody we get friendly with or just strike up on a conversation with, which would be the country you would want your children to, or, you would want to visit or immigrate to. And to almost every person, if they have children, they'd say, I'd want my child to come to America. So this is still the country of opportunity.
So Richard, I'm sorry, the U.S. is still number one, but you can always come to visit. Richard's over there in London wondering if he's ever going to see any new immigrants. So yeah, Richard, they still like it. I was actually listening to Parag kind of touched on this, and he said, you think after Brexit, you think after a lot of these nationalist policies and this populist kind of movements and things like that it would deter people, and immigration is still very, very hot to Britain. So So Richard, you'll be okay there. Let's see, Richard saying my wife and daughter are now over in Germany, so it's fish and chips again and maybe a little wine while they're out. That's great. Nita saying, Richard, yes, they still want to go. Very cool. All right, Ritu's got a question here.
Sure.
Ritu says, what impact do you think the new STEM guidelines will have for foreign nationals in the research space, particularly for O1s?
I hope that it would not limit the value that foreign nationals bring to the U.S. as far as the O1s are concerned, or anything to that effect. Because as Ritu, you and I were discussing even as recently as yesterday, COVID has taught us what the undisputed need for talent in the research world, and luckily for us in the US. So from that perspective, I can only hope that the more the immigration field opens up, the better off we are. And I'm saying we as in the US, not immigration per se. I mean, any opportunity we get, the better off the world will be as far as research is concerned. So from that perspective, hopefully it should not limit, and rather than, bolster us more for the O1s. That's my take on the situation, but we can take it offline and talk more.
Yeah, Ritu, and I'd love to know what you think as well about the STEM guidelines as well. It's interesting. Very cool. I want to keep those questions coming. Great questions, everybody. Keep those questions coming in the comments. We will try to get to all of them. You mentioned some stories. You kind of told us that funny one about that executive remembering you. But you also mentioned that there's some tough stories too. There's some unfortunate things.
Yeah, the toughest position that I was placed in was in 2021 when the Delta variant was sweeping India, and I literally had two or three managers of Indian origin literally crying on the phone to me. I said, Anindita, my dad's dying. I need to go to India. Can you please do something for me? And they had their green cards pending, and because of COVID backlogs, it was impossible trying to work with USCIS to get their advanced paroles. And it was just gut-wrenching and heartbreaking for me. I mean, being an immigrant myself, to not be able to help them. And there were a few that didn't make it. And on a personal level, I could feel their pain because I missed saying goodbye to my dad for 8 hours. I missed.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, the highs are high and the lows are low, and especially when you care, We got some other questions coming in here. Ritu says, thank you, very well said, and agree. Let's go here to Richard. Richard saying, I hear a lot about lots of new visas available for Saudi Arabia. What would Anindita say is a hot spot in the Middle East? Is there an area where we're seeing a lot of activity, a lot of interest?
It would be something that, we could look into and explore. And now with NAN's, we're fortunate enough to have Nan Pauk join our team, and we're looking into that, exploring that opportunity. But that is something that is opening up for those who are interested in going to Saudi Arabia. But I can still say the US would be something you would prefer to be in rather than Saudi Arabia because of how strict they are. But yes, from my understanding, there is more opportunity and more mobility into that area of the world, specifically Saudi Arabia. And that would be something, if you're interested, Richard, we could explore that together with Nan's help. Yes.
Yeah. Let's see. We got some other questions here. Nina. All right. Nina says, do you think the USA will ever come up with the concept of golden visa, quick PR with investment, like a lot of other countries are doing?
It would be great if they did, Nina, because it would be an awesome opportunity, but I don't honestly see any movement in that realm. They started that investment visa, I think entrepreneur visa, sorry, not investment visa, the investment visa as well as I do as far as AB5, and then Trump increased that. Then Biden reduced it from a million to 800, whatever, or 900 to 800. The entrepreneur visa is the closest they got, but nothing like the golden visa that I have heard of and that I hear again. And as all of us know, 2024, end of 2023, everybody's focusing on election. So I really don't see anything coming through, honestly, within the next 12 months.
How does the election affect immigration policy? Like, what do you see with that?
I mean, honestly, at this point, there's a lot of false promises, and the focus is never on anything that they will deliver. So anything that anybody says is just to buy votes. At this point, I honestly don't believe anything I hear, and especially with business immigration, I don't believe anything.
Do we see more action taken, like in the second term of a presidency versus the first term, or is it more having to do with Congress? I mean, I'm not really.
For what we do, it has to be congressional, right? It has to be in an act passed by Congress. So,
right.
It has to be something that Congress will.
Now, occasionally we see executive orders come out, especially during COVID and things like that, right?
Right. And then we have, for certain ridiculous stuff that we saw, like the increase of the prevailing wage and everything, that was passed an executive order by Mr. 45. Then we had lawsuits blocking him also, right? So I guess for something that would be change oriented, it would be Congress mandated. So that way.
I love when I get the opportunity to speak with leaders who have been doing this at a high level for so long. It's a real blessing in my job, and unintended benefit of getting to interview some of the luminaries and kind of thought leaders and leaders in our industry. You've seen a lot since you've had your firm, and your firm's grown a ton, obviously. How has business immigration changed? What have you seen over the last, couple decades? Just kind of, I'd love to hear kind of the ebbs and flows and the kind of way things have evolved. And I think it's just so fascinating to get that kind of perspective.
I will share two aspects. I'll answer your question in two ways. Business immigration, as far as the economy or this country or the world, I guess, if I can answer that first aspect of it, I think is indispensable. Mm-hmm. As far as global mobility is concerned, relocation is concerned, right? Because it's tied directly to mobility of talent, right? Mm-hmm. As far as we are concerned, and everybody in the relocation industry, that's why we have jobs. That's why we have utility. That's why we have, a presence. And that's why we love what we do, right? I hope for everybody on this call and in this position, in this industry. It goes without saying that that's, I hope, for all the right reasons, the way the world is headed, and hopefully the world will continue to be headed as far as the growth of and the exchange of talent is concerned. And that, I think, is a wonderful thing, no matter which country it's coming from, whichever direction it's going to. Specifically talking about the US as far as now a law firm culture, different insider view. That's where I guess there's a lot to be done. And that's where I go back to the duty of care, where I feel that a lot more can be done. A lot more can be done to how there's a responsibility. There's a responsibility of how we should strive to prioritize the comfort of the human being, of the beneficiary. We have a responsibility. And that's what we should not forget. And that's where I think a lot of us do forget. And I'm speaking on behalf of a law firm perspective, because that's the hat I wear. you know, and I can generalize by saying relocation. But from that perspective, that is what I will tell you. We have a legal and an ethical responsibility as far as I'm concerned. And that's where I humbly say that we distinguish ourselves at USILAW.
What are some of the yeah, Richard, we're working on it. Richard says we almost lost Anindita off the screen over there. Don't worry.
Sorry.
She's going to the moon, man. You know, gotta try to hold her down for an hour at least. What are some of the areas, you know, you mentioned duty of care several times, you know, and duty of care is a, you know, hot button issue, has been in other parts of relocation. But what are some of the areas where it fails, where you've seen it fail in business immigration? Maybe not at your firm, maybe just, you know, if, you know, you don't have to name names or anything like that, but what are some of the stories you've heard where the provider, the immigration provider has failed from a duty of care perspective?
Basic things as communication.
Okay.
Transparency.
Okay.
You know,
like they didn't get back to them in a timely manner. They didn't let them know where their status is.
Yeah. And then the final, you know, curtain, oh, you'll have to go back to, you know, you have to get on a plane.
Right. Worst case, I mean, that's how it ends up.
And then you're uprooting not just the professional employed, but then the spouse, the kids, the blah, 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 you know, and easier said than done. Because yes, that affects the family. That affects not just the family, the business opportunity. That affects the commitment the employer has made to the client, the employer's client. I mean, it just evaporates everything.
I would feel terrible if someone got sent back to their home country because I didn't process something in a timely manner, I wasn't responsive, or I didn't give enough information, or I mean, I don't know if I could live with myself if that happened, you know?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's just
and it happens all the time.
Abhorrent. We got a question from Richard. So Richard's always out there. I don't know what Richard's cooking over here, but something's in the stew. Richard's out here. He's throwing curveballs at us here. He says, "Are USILAW is it R or is? I'm not sure. USILAW thinking of using AI and ChatGPT to increase the speed of work turnaround." We've been hearing about this in the news that the legal profession is going to be heavily disrupted by AI, ChatGPT. What do you think?
Unfortunately not. Sorry to break that to you, Richard. In fact, we are a little old school. We were probably the only law firm, if I can say only, were one of the first ones to bring our team back to work Monday to Friday. Maybe very unpopular, but the nature of the work we do requires attention to detail. It's not rocket science, but definitely the reason we distinguish our work is because of the reason we get our 99% approvals are because of our quality of our work product. And that, you know, I say this 10% lightly, 90% seriously, you cannot get to fill an immigration form and produce the 9-page support letters on an H-1B with one screen with Netflix and the other screen with an immigration form. You wouldn't want me to be completing your immigration form with your date of birth and passport number on one screen and me watching Netflix with the other. So no. And ChatGPT, I was just listening to actually a documentary yesterday where some attorney came up with, you know, a ChatGPT produced document saying, you know, some made up case law. And the judge turned around and said that, you know, that's not a case law, that's made up stuff. And he was disbarred, like he should have been. Right. So no, we are not. I'm not in any rush to lose my license. This is my hard work. This is my passion, and there are, you know, scores and scores and a large team dependent on, you know, their livelihood. No. Yeah. We put in a lot of hard work in every petition we do. No ChatGPT, no AI. No.
You know, it's really interesting.
We have process. We have IT. We have support structure that is IT oriented, but no AI, ChatGPT. Our brains are the AI. So no.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting because like 90% of the time it might work, but the 10% of the time it doesn't work. I mean, you get disbarred, right? It's like a no-fail situation. You can't roll the dice knowing that there's even a 10% chance that you're going to reference something that's not case law or whatever. I saw that same story or something very similar to it. And in that 10% chance that something's going to go wrong, maybe it's not, maybe it's 2% chance. But if you do 100 visas and 2 of them are based on faulty references. I mean, that's not an acceptable margin for error, you know? So it's really, really interesting, you know, Richard. Now, will it get there one day? I don't know. Maybe it will. I don't know. But I agree with Anindita. I don't think it's there now. You know, I think ChatGPT and AI, you know, I think it's safe in the marketing space. I think it's going to you know, disrupt a lot of you know, content creation for marketing, for websites, for social media posts. You know, one day, you know, Richard, you might tune in here and I've lost a bunch of weight. I've got, you know, really good skin. And you're like, that's when you know AI is taking over Love and Relo. But until it gets to that point, I think we're stuck with the books here. Jason Hall says, love it. Well
I'll tell you
said.
actually, I know you like stories. I'll tell
I do
you
like stories.
2 quick ones, which is in keeping to what Richard was referring to. We have a very large client. I heard from the inside that a manager told me, and you know, this is, you know, to a certain extent hearsay, but I know this is reliable, that they share the business with a couple of law firms, that presumably the senior managers fight amongst themselves to try to get their cases to us to prepare, because they know that, you know, this would be the best prepared law firm, the petition with, you know, almost minimal, if not no RFEs. And the funny story is there was a client that called me to thank me when he got his green card. This is a few years ago. And I was like, okay, whatever, you know, put his call through. And he said, Anindita, you know, in the beginning, I used to hate you. And I'm like, okay, that's
a great way to start a conversation.
Seriously, that's a little harsh. I'm like, and that was like an Indian man telling me this. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, what's coming? He said, but now I love you. And I'm like, okay, this is even worse.
Even weirder? Okay, I'm not comfortable with
either.
either.
And I said, seriously? And I was like,
spectrum.
okay. And he's like, but you know why? I said that, you know, your team put me through the ringer asking me for this document and that document. And I was like, that's when I was like, oh my God, my friends who went to the other law firms never asked me for all this. Why is this lady and her team asking me? And now I realize, because I got my case approved with no RFEs and no issues, and that was not the case for the others. And now I realize what you did for me, and I'm so grateful. And I was like, oh, that's why you love me. Okay, that's
yes, that's really interesting.
Like I said, I appreciate it. I said, thank you.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I mean, basically, you're getting what you need to do it right the first time and getting the results. So long term, it saves time, I'm sure. And what I didn't realize until I was talking, you know, to y'all the other night was, because I'm not from the business administration space, right? So I mean, a lot of this is news to me. But I didn't realize that you get a fee to process a visa, but firms get paid on responding to the request for evidence.
Very poor business.
So the RFE is a profit center as well.
Absolutely.
So when you see that the RFE becomes a profit center, and you realize that the folks are not necessarily incentivized to get it right the first time. So it takes them, a level of commitment and integrity, I would assume, to pursue getting it right the first time, and forego some of the afterwork that comes with responding for requests for evidence.
Some friends joke with me, so you're a very poor businesswoman.
You'd make more money if you were doing RFEs all the time. Yeah, but you know what? But I think, when you look at your firm, and you look at where it's at, right? There's things that, there's that old book, Built to Last, right? And it's how firms are built on solid fundamentals and good ethics and everything.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that there are other people who are unethical. I mean, I'm not trying to put anything out
there.
No,
I'll even tell you that, even with the volume we get, we reinvent our petitions. So if we get a difficult RFE, I swear to you that we get a difficult RFE, we then, the next time we do a fresh, and these are more so for the difficult Ls or the L1Bs more so, we say, okay, what did we learn from that RFE? So that when we do the next petition, okay, we'll pick up stuff and then we rewrite, tweak it. We're not going to rewrite 14 pages or 24 pages, but we tweak it instead of just processing the cut and paste, honestly. Love it.
All right, let's see here. Okay, we're going to have some fun now. Are you ready to have some fun?
Absolutely.
Rob Zeitz is tuning in, so you know it's about to get fun. He says, I'm late, but greetings from Houston. No AI could replace Ben Cross. That's a bot. Let's see here. Jason Hall says, Rob Zeitz, boo ha, 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 ha. Maybe I've been a hologram at the next ERC in Boston. Yeah. Rita is saying, we'll echo the sentiment of physically being at work because the devil is in the details. And that is a huge confidence booster for partners, not clients. Super cool. So we like to do something called overrated, underrated on this show. Are you comfortable with that? If I give you a topic, or you want to say it's overrated or underrated?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I'm always politically inclined.
Good. Very good. That's the kind of people I like. Now, we haven't prepared this. This is a off-the-cuff, overrated, underrated. All right. We're going to hop right into it. You ready for this?
Yes, sir.
All right. Overrated, underrated. Beyonce.
Underrated.
Underrated. All right. Why?
She's amazing.
She is
Amazing performer. Such a hard worker.
Yeah, she worked her tail off.
Hard worker.
You know what I loved about the concert? So I like Beyonce. I'm not like a crazy Beyonce. I'm not part of the Bay Hive, you know?
Absolutely.
I don't know, it's the Bay Hive, the Beehive. I don't even know. Don't laugh. Okay, anyway, I'm not part of the Hive,
Yeah, neither.
but I respect the work ethic. I respect the longevity.
Exactly.
The fact she's been in the game like 25 years or something.
Exactly.
Back when I was in like high school,
Yeah,
she was doing
41
like
years
Destiny's Child or whatever, you
Absolutely.
know? And so I love that. I'm a big Jay-Z fan. And I love that she built community. Right when she came out on stage, she was doing, she did a ballad, heartfelt ballad, and then she started thanking her fans like by name, and calling people out for their birthday and thanking them for being there. And I'm like, that's how you build. And Taylor Swift does the same thing.
Yes,
that's how you build community. And community is those 100%. Things that transcend, that can make you 20 years in the game, and
100%.
So, okay. All right. So, you know what? I'll give that one to you. I'll say underrated if that's possible. You know what's funny? Before the concert, I would have said overrated. But being at the concert, I saw
witnessing.
I got the magic.
Yeah.
I felt the magic.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Here comes another one. These aren't going to be easy. I'm warning you now. Okay. The good news is we only have 3 more minutes. The Washington Commanders, overrated or underrated? I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan, so I got to ask. These are the hard-hitting questions.
That's too early to call because they're brand new. They have not proven themselves yet. If you talked about the old management, overrated.
Yes.
In a heartbeat.
They were so poorly run.
No. They're so
poorly run. But I love Magic Johnson. So
Yeah,
the fact that he's even involved.
We have a lot of hope for the new people. Absolutely. The new owners from Magic Johnson, we know. The rest of them, of course, we don't know. Yeah. But we met one of the owners, or Nan met another owner. They seem to be very good people, and they have a lot of commitment. So that's why I have hope from that perspective, I will say. For old guy, overrated. New guy, new team, yet
TBD. Ritu is right. She says overrated. She says go Ben. Yes to the Cowboys. Yes, Ritu. Yes. Richard says go Birds. We have a lot of Eagles fans. Oh, those dirty Birds. Okay. All right. Work from home. Overrated or underrated? Overrated.
Absolutely.
All right.
For which industry? Our industry.
Yeah. General. Us. I don't know.
I'm talking about law firm.
Okay.
Yeah. Law firm.
Is there other industries where you're more open to it?
Maybe IT, like developer.
Those are the worst though, because they're doing 3 jobs at once over there. They got 3 screens up. They're waiting for the code to come in. Those are the double dippers.
Yeah.
Those IT folks. I'm just kidding. I really don't know that. Reckless conjecture is what we're known for here on the show. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. Half my staff's fully remote, half my staff's we've
been blessed with the team. We had, I'll tell you, real life example during the pandemic. Obviously, when it was a hardcore pandemic 2020, we were blessed with our largest client entrusting us with a project which had 1,500 amendments. Mm-hmm. So how the financial structure crashed, everything crashed, and you had to pivot, right? So retail crashed, everything, so pharmacy, healthcare, whatever. And I literally got a call, hey, can you do this in 2 weeks? With an SLA of 2 weeks. And I had an amazing team, each one of them, but this particular group. And between combination working from home, we set up a structure, a schedule. The assistant paralegals produced it, printed, we gave everybody printers, printed it. The team leads came in, they reviewed it. The front desk came in, they scanned it, and it went out. 1,500 cases.
Wow.
So
and you think that had to do with the fact that you could coalesce around the project with urgency.
And then the first opportunity we got to bring everybody back.
we could not have pulled off that conference last week, that Love and Relo 500, and we flew everybody in.
Yeah.
It was all hands on deck. We had to do it.
There is a value.
There is a value. It's undeniable. Richard saying, I read Zoomer calling people back to the office. True story.
Yeah, everybody.
Jason Hall says HTTR, which is slightly racist. Just kidding. Held to the Commanders. It should be now. That had the same ring to it, I guess. Anyway, okay, here's another one for you. Overrated, underrated. Cricket.
Huh.
I told you these are good, right?
Today's cricket in India?
I don't know.
If you're talking today's cricket in India, I'm gonna define it overrated because it's a money guzzling, gambling opportunity. If you
Sounds
talk
like the NFL.
yeah, it's totally betting pre-set, ugly scene. So it's not a game anymore; it's gambling. So
is it like fixed? Is that what you're saying? Oh wow, I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is.
I've never been to a cricket match before. I've never played cricket.
It's huge money.
I hear the games can go on for multiple days.
Oh, that's if it is a test cricket, one-day cricket. Yeah.
That's concerning to me. I think baseball games are too long, so I don't know.
Oh, you'll die.
You'll die.
Yeah,
I'm trying not to die. That's kind of what my
3 to
life's
5
been
days,
about.
which is crazy.
It's
Yeah,
one of my key values.
it's too long. Yeah.
It's not dying.
You'll enjoy one-day cricket. Yeah, that's quick.
All right, I'd go to a
but now
cricket match.
they've shortened everything.
What about is there cricket here in the States? Is there like a good cricket?
Yeah, you can definitely get South Asian communities to play cricket. Yeah,
right.
just
I'd
watch
like to
it.
go.
Yeah, Dallas
Just to
actually.
experience. We have a cricket.
Yeah.
Frisco,
Texas.
I think, is creating a cricket team.
I'm sure. Like Houston has many teams. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really
I'm sure
hot.
Dallas
Is it a
is, yeah.
summer sport? Because it's really hot in Dallas. It's like 100.
No, I'm very sure because it's so
Okay.
warm down in Texas. I'm sure it's winter also.
Yeah, well, that's what you think about soccer. But they just played. Messi just played in Dallas on Monday.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
4-4.
Now that he's in Florida. Oh, really?
Oh,
Okay.
so good. Sold my tickets for $1,500. Anyway,
Oh, wow.
moving on. Last one: overrated, underrated conferences. Overrated, underrated conferences.
Overrated.
Overrated. All right, defend your point. Conferences overrated. What do you think? I know it's tough. These are all tough, so I mean they're not easy.
Depends on the professional and the purpose.
Okay.
If it is something that, we are going for networking purposes, then of course it is, I would say, underrated because it's an opportunity that everybody should take advantage of. If it is something that, I'm going to get into trouble if I say it.
That's why I asked these questions. You told me you don't mind me. You're like, hey, I'll be controversial. Yeah.
If it is
what we
something
watch
that
for.
people are just, certain types of people are just going to scout out who's his client and then to, basically target them, then I think it's underrated.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that it depends on what your goal is
Yeah.
for attending. Let's put
This
it that way.
this is interesting here because we got comments coming in here, and it's interesting because Tom put this comment in before I asked the question, but in a
Tom.
way it speaks to the question. Tom says, I had the pleasure of meeting Anindita at Worldwide ERC last year,
Absolutely.
and the additional pleasure of attending the Love and Relo 500 event last week. Anindita and Ben are the right stuff.
Oh, man after my own heart. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Tom was amazing at the Love and Relo 500, and I think it speaks to the magic of the conference. And then Chris Lagerman from WHR Global says, conferences all but Glomo underrated. All but Glomo. All
Thank you.
conferences are overrated, but the Glomo one's underrated.
Huh?
I'm sure that's what he means.
Yeah.
Otherwise he wouldn't have said it because Chris is a nice person.
Yeah.
Richard Majewski says conferences, real thought there. Tension, yes, this is what we go for. This is what we Chris is saying all but the Glomo one are overrated. So
Okay,
all
yeah,
overrated.
that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Tom says you got that right. Yeah, that's awesome. Rob, random cricket knowledge. Major League Cricket was just playing in Grand Prairie, Texas. I think the season just ended.
Okay.
Grand Prairie. There we go. See, stats and information keeping us
Yeah.
on point here. This is fantastic. So much fun. here. And Anindita, I love
No,
talking
thank
to
you.
you.
Thank you so
Your
much.
office is phenomenal.
Thank
This
you
is
very much
great.
for coming.
Really impressed with what you've put together and accomplished,
Thank you.
and sharing your decades of experience and perspective with us. Do you want to leave people maybe with just a final thought here?
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for this opportunity, and most importantly, and thank you, Nan. I'm so grateful that Nan Park is now a part of the team, and we
Excellent
are
pickup there.
so grateful that we are looking forward as a team. At USILAW, everything that we worked together for almost 2 decades to build. We are looking forward to now take it to a different level. We have an agenda over the next, I would say, 6 to 12 to 18 months to really grow this team into a different platform. We are aspiring to build an agenda where we're going to grow global into Canada, UK, and the EU, Singapore. And we already have a presence in India, but hopefully Australia, and hopefully bigger and better things that we can actually share this culture of duty of care. And hopefully there'll be more partners. As you know, I hate the word clients. Partner with us and benefit from what we believe in this duty of care, and share this love with a lot more foreign nationals that deserve this. And hopefully we get to, share our culture with a lot more people.
Super cool.
Thank you.
That's a really cool growth plans you got there. Be looking forward to doing one from Singapore soon.
Yeah.
Hopefully when you stand that up.
Absolutely.
Hey, thanks everybody for being here. Hit that like button one more time. We are wrapping up our DC road trip this week. Tomorrow at the International Association of Movers headquarters in Alexandria, we'll be with Brian Lampropoulos, Vice President and President-elect of IAM, as well as Chuck White, President of IAM. Today has been Anindita Chowdhury here, the Managing Attorney at USILAW. Anita, thank you so much.